Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. We have, this guy's wearing green too. I just did an interview with somebody wearing green the other day. He was a Notre Dame fan, but I don't think that's the case here. But we've got a successful Connecticut bar taker, Nicholas Lanigan. Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Congratulations. This must be an exciting time.
It's very exciting. When I got the notification and went up to the website and saw my name on that list, it was one of the most exciting times of my life.
That's great. Well, I want you to tell your story to everybody. I want to hear the story and what happened and how you prepared, what it was like. It's always nice to lead with that kind of moment of joy when you get the results. So this is a happy story, folks. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to be in law school and then to be taking the Connecticut bar?
Sure. Well, I entered law school working full time, doing law school at night. I actually did a dual degree MBA and JD. Did it all in 4.5 years. So I combined a lot of work, and at that time my wife was very understanding, and didn't see me for 4.5 years. So certainly appreciated all that support. And actually, coming out of law school, I got transferred out of the country with my company, so I didn't immediately take the bar. Fast forward 8 years later, it wasn't the opportune time because I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and one on the way. So I said to my wife, I think now is the time, and we should, if you're okay with it, it's going to be, not seeing me for a lot of time as well. And I actually happened to be traveling out of state for work as well. So I was away from home Monday through Thursday, came home Thursday nights, and then went back into New York. I reside in Connecticut, so. My wife said, "Just go for it. We'll deal with it the best we can." And I decided, I do need a prep course. I needed that, kind of refresher after 8 years. Although I'm, in a quasi legal field with contracts and compliance with my company, I still needed that. So I went online, searched. I actually listened to your many podcasts, and I said, you know what, I think this is for me. Signed up, and thank goodness I did, because actually my third son was born 3 days before the bar. We actually planned to have my son at home like our first two. Unfortunately, after 12 hours of active labor, we had to go to the hospital. So I was in the hospital 2 days before the exam.
Wow.
Came home, took the exam, and thank goodness this is my only time I have to take the exam.
I don't know who deserves a bigger, attaboy, you or your wife. I mean, look, 12 hours of labor into the hospital, you have your third child, and oh, bye, honey, go take the bar exam. I'll see you in a couple of days, right?
Yeah, she was
Wow.
fabulous throughout the whole time. It was. I tended to study. I tried to study the best I can when I was away from home during the week, but of course I had to study, during the weekends, and I tended to do it really early in the morning and really late at night. But still, it was a lot of pressure on her, and she certainly needs most of the kudos for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that balance of home and work and study, because that's a big concern for a lot of people taking the bar, and certainly in our course. We have lots of folks with young children like you do. How did you figure that out? What was your game plan going into this in terms of how you were going to balance those?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the thing that attracted me to your course was the flexibility of it. I could tailor it to what worked for me. And really, what worked for me was, like I said, I was kind of at the bookends of the day. I would get up typically around 4 o'clock in the morning,
Wow.
and I would actually go and sit in a park and ride for between 2 and 3 hours, and study in my car in a park and ride, so I
No
can.
kidding. Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. And nobody
I
called the police on you, huh?
I went through two to three park and rides just so I wasn't looking suspicious, but it got myself to be able to be by myself, and also I kind of got out of my wife's hair. I wasn't there right at the beginning of the day when they're waking up, stressing everybody out with my pale looks as I was trying to progress through my studies. But that was the key for me. Your course allowed me the flexibility to be able to tailor it to what worked best for me.
Wow. That's really, I've had people study in some interesting places, Nick. I'm not sure anyone's ever said to me they studied in a park and ride. So I think you've just named this episode. Um, Now, you'd come in, and how many hours a week would you say on average were you studying?
Um, well, I started preparing well in advance. So I started around the October time frame,
Okay.
and I took the bar in July. So as I progressed, I started fairly slowly. I want to say maybe 10 to 12 hours a week, and then I slowly worked up. Probably at the peak, it was probably 4 hours a day.
Okay.
So, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, or if I couldn't get up early or I couldn't stay awake at late at night, I would pack it in. But I was at the peak somewhere between 4 and 5 hours a day, and then I progressively came back down.
Okay. Now, that's an extraordinary commitment to make and for a long period of time, and obviously getting up early in the morning and doing all the things you were doing. You must have had a pretty strong goal or desire around the bar. You want to share a little bit about that? I mean, what would make somebody who's got a good job, good family, why would you put yourself through that?
It was just something that I had to do. I put so much time and effort into law school. I didn't want to get to the end of my career or to the end of my life and say, I should have tried it. I didn't want to be scared of failing. Although at the beginning, I can tell you it was extremely stressful. Those first few weeks, I started second guessing myself. I just like you said, I putting all that time and effort in. I said, well, do I really want to do this? Do I really need to? And as I got through it, listen to your podcast over and over again, and reiterating why we're here, listening to folks like myself interview with you.
Yeah.
It was certainly very helpful, and what really helped me was my ride up to New York was about 3 hours each way. So I had in the car, 12 hours a week that were just completely dedicated to listening to the podcasts. So I think that certainly helped, but I just didn't want to get through, like I said, through my career, through my life, and look back and say I should have done that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's just talk about logistics for a minute. You said you listened to the lectures while you were in the car. Were you connected to the internet, or did you use the iBar 2.0 where you download it to your device?
I listened to the internet.
Okay.
I luckily I had good service
Great.
throughout my ride, so I didn't need
Good.
to revert back to that. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, and I'm asking because I get the question a lot from people that, say, I want to listen while I'm in the car, I've got a long commute, whatever it might be. It's certainly possible to do, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And where I couldn't listen to it, I actually reverted to your podcast so I could download the podcast. And I kind of substituted that where I just couldn't listen online.
Yeah. So you're pretty happy to not have to listen to my voice anymore, I imagine. It's like,
Well,
oh, it's gone.
you get it's funny because you get used to it, and I could always tell like your little quirks because you're spending. I spent more time with you in a 6 month period than I spent with my family. So people better get used to it.
Yeah, I hear that more than once. I've had people with children who the kids come by and go, oh, it's that guy again. Okay, I get that. So, you chose our basic coaching program, which meant that you and I were not working together on your essays or your performance tests. And another question that I often get from people is, can you pass the bar on your first try, or any try really, using the basic coaching program? You did that. It was your first time on the exam. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like and why you chose the basic coaching versus personal or one of the other options?
Yeah, I actually struggled a little bit with that decision because I tend to be a person that needs a little pushing and a little encouragement. So what I said to myself was, I'm going to try the basic for a 6 week period, and if I'm slipping, then I'm gonna take the mentoring course. And I just happened to hit a stride with my studies. And what I did do is I monitored my performance. I had a huge Excel workbook that every single test I took,
Mhm.
every single essay I wrote, I monitored my progression. And it like I look back after the bar exam, I look back and I looked at that progression, and it was noticeable. I mean, the beginning, I really struggled, but I could see where I needed to focus. I could monitor it. And without that, I think I probably would have struggled and I would have needed some more coaching, but that really helped me.
Yeah, there's a truism in education that what we measure is what improves. And obviously, your MBA background came in handy.
Hmm.
It's always the MBAs and the engineers that have got the spreadsheets and the sliding pivot tables and all those things. And God love them because I don't get it. Um, but as you were keeping track, when you go back and look, you do see this progression, don't you? That improvement in scores, improvement in the work. Um, and that's got to be encouraging to you as you're studying to be able to see that growth, right?
Yeah, it was really key because like you've stated in all of your lectures and all of your podcasts, you're going to have points in your studies where you're doubting yourself. You're going to have points where you're really down in the ditches and you need some encouragement. And that was one part where it really encouraged me to look back and say, geez, I got that many wrong 5 weeks ago, and look at how far I've gotten in 5 weeks. And that allowed me to really monitor how much time and effort I had to put in going forward. So I kept saying, okay, I got to put this much time and effort if I'm only getting that many right. It was a godsend to look back and say, okay, put that. It took a little bit of time and effort because I had to constantly keep track of each answer and look back, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, and I would really recommend and encourage for every student to keep track of their performance. I just think it's like weight and exercise and all these other things. If we don't measure them, we really don't make much progress on them. So I'm always excited when I know somebody's doing that. I think it's a particularly good way to do it. And because you studied over a longer period of time than a lot of people do, although not too long by any means, it's really important to be able to have the long-term view of what you're doing. Otherwise, you just get sort of lost in the weeds, right? It's like, I'm just
Right.
spinning my wheels through here. For those that don't know, we offer a study guide, a syllabus that had an order of assignments and how long each assignment should take. You were following that syllabus as you went through the course?
I was. I tweaked it a little bit
Mhm.
based on my availability and what
Right.
I could put in. But I did follow the syllabus all the way through and actually because I took a little bit longer period of time, I took every single question in every single prep test that you had available.
Wow.
And I still had luckily I still had a couple weeks buffer because I really needed it because our third son Wyatt was born 4 weeks early. So I'm
Okay.
glad that I had that buffer.
So you'd planned, but you hadn't planned that well, is what you're telling me. It's like,
Exactly.
wait, what do you mean he's coming?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I understand. Our daughter arrived 4 weeks early, and I remember to this day that I was working at night and almost missed her birth. A fact that has never been forgotten in my family. Um, so yeah, definitely makes a difference to have some buffer, some time at the end. Some things happen, life happens, and it's like, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about this whole notion. I mean, so you're expecting Wyatt in 4 weeks. Wyatt decides to make an early arrival so that he can congratulate Dad on the bar exam, And I mean, and I remember hearing from you at that point that, your wife was going into labor. This was going to, I mean, we were a couple days before the exam. What's going through your mind with respect to the bar exam? I'm sure there are bigger issues on your mind, your wife, her health, the child, and so on. But in terms of the bar exam, what are you thinking about at this point? What's happening?
Yeah, once we got through the birth, and Jessica was fine, and Wyatt was fine. I started to just continuously study in my brain, because I obviously didn't bring all my materials with me to the
Oh,
hospital,
thank
because
God. Yeah,
that would have
please.
been
That would have been
that would have
bad.
been a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was going through was, I was going through the practice in my mind. Things that you've mentioned on the podcast, things you've mentioned in the lecture, to concentrate on just from a strategic perspective. I was going through that in my mind, and what I was going to attack, what I wasn't going to focus on, what traps I wasn't going to find myself in. And then just the big ticket items that I was struggling with in each section. I was just going through it in my mind, and then once we got home, I did my refresher, and um, you know just
And then went off to the bar.
entered the best I could, and just
Okay, well, so let's talk about going to the bar exam. In Connecticut, the test is given in one location, right?
that is correct.
Okay,
Yes,
so there are a fair number of people there, right?
there was. Yep,
Yeah,
I think there was 600.
yeah, that's a pretty good
Yeah,
size.
yeah.
Um, how did you get your focus back? I mean, there's so much going on in your life at this moment. I mean, the birth of a child is one of those things that becomes pretty pivotal in our lives. How
Mhm.
did you get your focus back for the bar exam, knowing that you had 2 days of testing ahead of you?
Yeah, a couple things I did. One, I went back and listened to a couple of your lectures, beginning lectures, and podcasts, just to kind of reset myself, refocus on the task at hand, and I didn't cram. I said I'm gonna know what I know now. I
Mhm.
put a lot of time and effort in, and I said, let's just go in there with a fresh set of eyes. I'm not staying up late the night before, and the night before the second day. I'm relaxing, and I think that helped. One of the other things, to be perfectly honest with you, going into the bar, I was really concerned that Wyatt was going to come during the bar. So actually, him coming early was a huge relief,
Yeah,
not only for me,
sure,
but I think for
sure.
Jessica as well, because I think Jessica was concerned that I was going to be at the bar, no way to get a hold of me. So I think for both of us, it was a sense of relief, and the fact that mom and child were healthy and happy. I think it kind of reset my mind at ease.
Yeah, I think Wyatt deserves an assist then on this, don't you?
Yeah, he definitely does.
So when he grows
He'll
up,
hear.
yeah, when
Yeah,
he
he'll
grows
hear
up,
about it.
hey, listen, Wyatt, you were right on time, brother. You
Yeah,
got right get there. Um,
exactly.
so for those that don't know, Connecticut uses the uniform bar exam, which means that you had 6 essays, 30 minutes each, generalized law. Then you had a couple of performance tests. And that's all in one day, and that's the first day of the exam. How did you feel at the end of the first day?
Um, the morning went well. The
Mhm.
the the MPT, I really felt like I did very well. The afternoon, the first 3 or 4 essays, I really felt good. Um, and then I think I might have hit the wall. I think maybe everything in the last week or so kind of hit it, and I actually had to put, kind of set aside my computer for a second, and just take a deep breath,
Mhm.
because I was kind of losing focus. But I felt pretty confident coming out of the first day. I struggled with those last 2 essays, but I felt like my performance on the MPT and my performance on the first few essays, really, I thought, could pull me through. I don't think anybody walks out of either day feeling like they aced the test. I could certainly tell you that, coming out, I didn't say, oh yeah, I passed for
Right,
sure.
right.
But I felt okay. I felt like I took your strategy, the FLA strategy. I felt like I covered what I could cover. I got to a point where I felt like you were in my brain because I was working on one essay for a long time, and I was trying to get it perfect. And I said, you know what? That's good. That's good enough. Keep going.
Apparently, I am able to be in many brains at once on test day. I hear this a lot. It's like, well, I hear that little voice in my head. Okay, all right. So then the next day is the multi-state exam, which for a lot of people is really really terrifying now. 200 questions, 7 subjects. How'd you feel about that? I mean, you've been tracking your performance. You obviously knew how you've been doing in the practice exams. What was your mindset coming into the MBE?
Yeah, my last two prep tests, I did really really well.
Yeah.
I was tracking very well in my progress, and then the last two really, I thought I hit my stride, and so I went in very confident. The morning time, I felt great. I thought I went through it. I had plenty of time. I answered what I thought, was fairly decent answers. The afternoon, again, I think I struggled a little bit just from I kind of hit the wall maybe halfway through, and I think the afternoon, although it's a little foggy. If people tell you they remember everything during the bar, they're lying because
Yeah.
a lot of it's really foggy. But I think the afternoon for me, that 100 block was the longer questions,
Yeah.
which didn't bode well for my psyche at that point. But I struggled a little bit in the afternoon, which meant as I was walking out, I wasn't as confident as I probably could have been. But walking out of there, I said, I put my best foot forward, and we'll see how it lands.
That's great. Well, so when results came out last week, I think that's right, last week. Tell me about that. What was that moment like, and how did you find out, and what happened?
Yes, so Connecticut doesn't notify that day. So what they make everybody do is log in to the website, and they post the PDF of those that have passed. So um, I opened the document. They don't tell you exactly when it's going to be, so I
Right.
opened the document.
It's the surprise. Yes,
Yeah,
the October
yeah.
surprise.
Sometime in the afternoon, I opened the document. I noticed it was posted, and I started scrolling through. And as I got closer to the L's, I kind of stopped. I took a deep breath, and I scrolled through, and I saw my name. And it was it, I've never really felt something like that associated with any of my studies, even going through law school, college, anything like that. It was just a sense of relief, a sense of accomplishment. And I immediately went downstairs, and first I said, Jessica, make sure I'm reading this right. And she said yes, and I think she was as excited as I was. It was great.
Yeah. Well, congratulate Jessica for us and Wyatt and
I
your other
will.
2 children. It's a family. It's a family adventure. I know. That's great news, and it's a great story, really, Nick. And I think one
Thanks.
that a lot of people will be able to relate to and go, "Wow, that's awesome." Um, what advice would you have for someone who's in a similar situation to yours and is thinking about how to study and what to do at this point?
hmm Um, I would say, if you have a certain way of studying or preparing, work with that. That your course allows that flexibility. Like I said, um, be cognizant of your family, because and you say it a lot during your lectures and the podcast. You're going to become a different person throughout this process. The mood swings are going to be all over the place, and you have to realize that you're impacting your family. So sometimes you got to take a step back, and then just don't give up. You are going to, you say it in your podcasts and your lectures as well. You're going to hit these kind of valleys of just despair, and second question, second guessing your study style, your strategy. Just pound through it. Just get through it, and it'll be worth it at the end.
That's great. Well, I am just thrilled for you and for your family. I am so glad that you're part of the Celebration Bar Review team, and we love seeing results like yours. First time taker comes in and passes the exam. And Connecticut in the UBE is not an easy jurisdiction. It's a pretty tough cut score, so it's not a gimme by any stretch of the imagination. And we're really proud of you. And I just am so thankful that you would share your story, because I know out there in the audience there is the next Nick Lanigan who's going, I don't know, man, I got a couple of kids, and I got a lot of work, and it's been a long time since I was in law school, and can I do it? Yeah, folks, you can do it. And you don't have to buy the most expensive course. You don't have to do all of those extra things. You just have to follow the program. The basic program works really, really well. And I think that you're a great example of that. And I'm so thrilled for you. I hope that the future continues to have good things for you and your family. And we're just proud of you and congratulate you. So any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience today?
No, I appreciate it. The course was great, and I appreciate your support, and wish everybody luck.
That's great. Listen, everybody, thanks for being with us today. Thank you, Nick, for being with us, and best wishes. And we'll see you all again in our next hangout. Bye-bye for now.